Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Okay, so welcome to our live stream. We'll start at exactly 8:05.
hmm
Just giving people 2 more minutes to join in. All right, now that it's 8:05, I think we can begin. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Cynthia Kamau. I'm part of the GDG Nairobi team, and I'll be your host for today. Our speaker is Jackie. She's going to be taking us through the Android session. Jackie is an Android developer, and she also serves as an organizer for DroidCon KE, Droidettes, and she's also a WTM ambassador. So I'm now going to hand it over to Jackie. In case anyone has a question as we go, feel free to type on the comment section and we're going to address it. Thank you, and over to you, Jackie.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session. Like Cynthia said, I am Jackie Vital, and I'll be taking you through today's session on how to integrate Gemini AI in your Android applications. I will go through a few slides and then take you through a small demo of a project that I've done. Yeah, just to get you started. Okay, so now I'll share my screen. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Yeah, so today's session is on integrating Gemini AI in Android applications. So I'll go through a few prerequisites and then some common use cases you can use to integrate the Gemini model, and also a few things on project setup, and then I'll talk a bit about the Gemini model and the app architecture, how I developed the application that I used when I was working on my application. So a few prerequisites that you need. First of all, you need to have the latest version of Android Studio installed in your laptop. And then you also have, okay, and then you have to target, if you're, you have to have like a target level, API level of 21 and above. That is for the kind of the phones that you want to target. And then some of the common use cases you can use when you're developing or when you want to develop or to integrate the model in your applications, it's when you want to build intelligent chatbots, also virtual assistants for those who have applications where they are running their businesses on, and also a question and answering kind of application, and also a text generation application. That is, if you do like the model to generate some emails for you, or say you're working on an assignment and you're trying to figure out what, as in how to write your assignment, you can send a prompt to the model so that it can generate like your desired kind of response. And also when you're setting up your application, you need to add the SDK dependency from that Google has provided for you. And also you need to have an API key. If you don't have one, you'll have to create one in the Google AI Studio. And also you need to add the API key in your application. You can either do it in the secrets.properties file or in your local.properties file. That is if you'd like to share this project with people in your on your repository. Okay, so the app architecture that I used when I was developing my application was I categorized it in two layers, the UI layer and the data layer. So the data layer is where we have our single source of truth. That is where I've initialized the instance of the Gemini generative model so that we can where we'll be sending our prompts to, so that it can return a result based on our prompts. And the UI layer is where the prompts and your messages will be rendered on, so that you can be able to see what's happening. Yeah, so these are just some of the ways to interact, how the architecture is like. The UI layer, you'll see how I have managed states in the stakeholders, that is the view models, and how I have rendered the state on our UI using composables. And here it's some of the, okay, how you can also say structure your data layer. That is, you can have repositories and data sources when you're repositories and data sources to handle matters to do with data in the background. Yeah, and then some of the resources that I used were the Gemini AI Quick Start and a YouTube video that I looked at just to learn more about how to integrate the API in our applications. Yeah, so now I'll go through a few things. That is, I'll go through the get started with Gemini API in Android just to see what Google has provided for us so that you can be able to implement the API in our applications. So the prerequisites that they provided, and also how to set up your project, where they say you have to get an API key. That is, if you don't have one and you click on it, to redirect you to a site where you need to generate your API key. They've also provided for you a documentation on how to provide to store your API key in like a secret file, and then call it from that file using build config, just to secure your API and other people, and so that also other people wouldn't manage to use it. And also a few things to look at when you want to start working on the model, to implement the model in your application is, this is the SDK that you need to add in your application as a dependency. So Google has already provided that for you. And also how to initialize an instance of the generative model and how to configure it. So two things something that I failed to mention is we have two model names, and that is, we have the Gemini Pro. This is a model name that you need to specify when you want to interact with the model by giving it text only prompts. And then we also have the Gemini provision, and you specify this model name, you configure this model name in the generative model instance when you want to give the model prompts based on text and images. Okay, another thing, I think that's all that you need to see. And also there's something else I haven't mentioned is, you need to run the generate content inside a coroutine, because it gives input and it performs input and output operations, and it's also a suspend function. So you need to call it inside a coroutine. There are other things that you need. You can configure further inside the generation, in a generation config property. So you can either configure the temperature, or as in how you'd like your text to be generated when you, or your, as in how you'd like the model to return responses, based on your liking. So the temperature is usually between 0 to 1. So you can configure the temperature between 0 and 1, yeah, to get your desired kind of output from the model. Yeah, I think that's all from that. Then next we will go through the Google AI Studio. The Google AI Studio, where they provide the API key for you. And also this is an interface which you can use to interact with the model, and also maybe generate some of the prompts you'd like the model to output when you're interacting with it. And this can be helpful. This can be helpful when you want to create your own virtual assistant in your application. So let's say if your application is based on, say, giving financial advices, you can you can add some prompts here, so that when, say, a user asks or interacts with your AI or your chatbot in your application, they can be able to get responses based on the prompts that you've configured or generated in this interface. So next, I will share my screen so that you can see how I integrated the AI in my application or in Android. Okay, so we'll close this. moment. So now I'm going to show you how I integrated the AI in an application. One moment. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Cynthia, are you able to see my screen? Cynthia?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, okay. So, one moment. Okay, so see, my what I wanted. Okay, so this is okay. Now I want to take you through a small demo on how I was able to integrate the model in an Android application, and I worked on a chat application. So for me to achieve that, first I'll take you through how I configured or how I added my dependencies. Then I'll take you through the code. So first of all, like I'd shown you, you need to add the SDK, the generative AI SDK, and this is how I added it in my version catalog. And also I added coroutines because I mentioned that we'll need to run or call the generative content inside a coroutine because it performs input output operations. And also I added the vmodel lifecycle in my in my dependencies because we'll use the vmodel to manage states, and it will be our state holder. And then I configured them here as well in my build.gradle file. So this is how you install it, or you add it as a dependency. This is the generative AI and also the coroutines dependency. Then after that, since it's a chat model, that means we're going to have two participants, that is a user and a model. And I have defined the two possible participants in an enum class. And then I also created a data class called chat model. This is the data that we're expecting to have when we're interacting with the model. First is I defined a variable called prompt, and which is of type string, and I've initialized it to an empty string, and also declared a participant of type participant this, and I've initialized it to a user as a participant because you as a user will need to initiate the prompt first so that the model can be able to return a response. Okay. Next, I'll take you through how I installed how I configured the generative model and how I called the generate content in this Gemini API implementation object. So I created a suspend function called get prompt, and inside I have a prompt as a parameter, and it will return a chat model object. So when we get a successful result, it will return data based on this. That is, we're going to have a prompt, and then it will map that specific prompt or response to that to the respective participant. So now, since we are interacting with the model here, it will return a chat model, and it will be mapped to the model because we are getting we'll be getting the network response or a response from the model. That's why I've specified it as the model as the participant to the model. Yeah, as in the model as the participant will be a model based on the kind of response we'll get. So, like I said, first of all, you need to create an instance of the generative model, and inside it will do I did only two configurations. That is by adding the model name as the Gemini Pro model name, because my application because I'll only be interacting with the model using text inputs only, and then you also have to add the API key that you'll generate from Google AI Studio. And then in here, we're going to, since it's a network, we'll be getting an input output data or interactive. Yeah, we'll be getting data from a data source that's not like on your machine. It's probably maybe from a database or the network, but here we're getting this response from a network. So you might experience some errors because sometimes things could happen, and probably you will get like an error, or an error. So you need to run or to do some exception handling just to ensure that you handle exceptions in case you fail to get a successful response from the data source. So in this case, we'd like to get a response from the generative model. And I said that since it's going to perform an input output operation and it's a suspend function, you'll need to call it inside a coroutine scope. So that's why I called it I used dispatcher.io so that it can run the operation away from the main thread. So it will run this operation in the background. So first you'll need to, so I called the generative content and passed in a prompt inside it. So meaning when you interact with the model, once you send this information to the model will be able to return a response based on this prompt that you'll give to it. So if the prompt or if the operation will be successful, it will return a chat model with the prompt message and map that message to that particular participant, which will be the model. Or if it returns an empty prompt or an empty response, it will render an error message from the model. But say if something happens and the response is not successful, it will return a configured message from the model, or if it does not have a specific message, it will render an error message instead on your UI, and it will map it to the participant, to the model as the participant. Then, so this is the part where we handle data. So yeah, the data the first place where we've handled the data is first of all ensuring that you've captured how you'd like the message to be outputted on your screen. So the prompt and the participant, and also now where we get the message from, and this is where, and we get the message from the generative model. Yeah, the generative model. So that's our data part of it. So next we're going to see how I handled things to do with UI. So first of all, you need to uh, handle state or manage state. Um, I created a UI state interface class, which is a generic, and inside it we have a couple of, or we have I've managed. Okay, I have defined some of the states that you're going to have when you're interacting with the model. One is the error state, which will return an error message, which is of type string. Okay, we have passed in, okay, it has a message as a parameter and it will return nothing. Next, we're going to have a successful state when you're interacting with the model. So this is a generic, so meaning it will, you can, yeah, it will take any object that you give to it. And then here we're also going to have a loading state. That is when you're waiting for the model to return a response. And then we're also going to have an idle state. That is when you first launch the application and it will, yeah, and it will not, and once you initialize the application, it is going to have an empty screen. So that's why we have an idle state here. And then next is the states that you so how we're going to manage the state view model. And this state view model is also of type generic, meaning we can give it any object, and it extends the view model class, which is used to handle life cycle changes and also configuration changes when, say, you rotate your phone. I mean, it will be able to handle, it will be able to like persist that state in case you something in case you yeah, an example is in case you change the layout of your screen from, say, portrait to landscape. So it will be able to handle, to persist that state across those configuration changes. So inside this state view model class, I have defined two kinds of states that you're going to have. First, it's a mutable state, which is used to hold the current state of the UI or of the object, and the other one, this second state, is used to observe and also render the current state of the object to your UI. And then also here, this is how your UI will be updated with the states that you're going to encounter. So this, the first update function is going to observe or it's going to observe the current state based on the value that you've given to it. And then this other update function is going to render or to show the current state that that the current state of the object that it has, and it's going to update it with this block function, which is a lambda function. So it's going to transform that state and render like the current state after you've given it a value, then it's going to update that state with this lambda function, which is a block which is a lambda function. Next, we're going to see how we handled the state of the chart So I created a data class called chart UI state. So now this is going to show you the different kind of states that you're going to have when in that specific chart. So first we're going to have a prompt, which is of type string. That is the prompt that you're going to give the model. And then next we're going to have messages, which is going to return a list of the chart, a UI state, which will return like the chart model. That is the prompt that you're going to, or the prompt or the response that you're going to get from either the user or the model, and it's going to map that specific message to the respective participant. That is either the user or the model. And then this has been, I've initialized it to idle state, because first of all, when you launch the application, it's going to have an empty screen. So that means that it's in idle state. And then next, you're going to have charts, which will return a list of the chart model. And I've initialized this to an empty list, because at first it's going to have it's not going to have any charts in it. Inside this data class, I have defined a few properties, or two properties. The first one is action enabled, and this is we're going to use this to check, as in to enable like a send button once you start interacting, or once you start giving the text field a prompt. So first of all, it's going to check whether the text field has a prompt, so that means the prompt is not blank. And it's also going to check whether the state of the message is in a loading state. If it's not in a loading state and the prompt is not blank, it's going to enable the button that you're going to use to send that prompt to the model. And then this is going to check this other property is prompt enabled, is going to check whether it's going to enable the text field. That is when the state of the message is not in a loading state. And then next we have a chart view model class, which extends the state view model, and it initializes this chart view model with the chart UI state, which is this state here. So that means if the current UI state is empty, so the chart view model, so it will render the UI with an empty screen. So first of all, I'll take you through the private functions that I've created here. So first we have a private function called send prompt, and this is basically used here I defined some of the operations that we're going to handle once you click on the send button and send the prompt to the model. So first of all, I declared a variable called prompt, and this is going to check the current state of the prompt, and then update the state of the prompt, and then it's going to add a chart, or the chart that you're going to add, or the prompt that you're going to add on the screen as a chart history. And then here and then here is where you handle operations when you send a prompt to the model, and so here I called the get prompt method from the Gemini API implementation class, this one, Gemini API implementation object. And I called it inside a view model scope because this is also a coroutine. And like I said before, since this is a because it's a suspend function, this get prompt is a suspend function. It means you need to call it inside another suspend function or a coroutine so that it can be able to work as expected. And then you'll give it a prompt. So it will check the prompt that you've given to it, this, and then it will send that prompt that you give to it. It will send it to the model, and then that prompt or that message that you've sent, if that message is going to, if the UI state of that message is going to be successful, it's going to return a result from the model and then add that chat model on your screen. So meaning when you send a prompt, it's going to show you the chat that you've sent or the prompt that you've sent. And then once the model returns a result, it's going to add that result on your screen right below it. And then here is how you handle the way how your UI will add, how we will add the charts as history on your UI, or because when you're chatting with someone, for example, on WhatsApp, you're going, say if you're the first person to initiate the chat or the conversation, first you're going to send that chat to, say, your friend, and then your friend will respond with a response. So it's usually a list of chats that you see on your screen when you keep on interacting with the other person, say your friend or your relative, it could be whoever. So this is the function that I created to be able to add those chats as history on your screen. And then we've initialized, I added the model of type chat model as a parameter inside the add chat function. And then first of all, you need to check the current state of the chats, which is a mutable list of chats. And then it's going to add the chat from the model it's going to append that response or chat from the model on your screen. And then it's also going to update the charts. It's going to update the current state of the charts on your screen. So that's so let's say as you keep on interacting with the model, it will keep on like appending all the chats that or all the messages that you've sent and the messages that you've gotten as responses from the model. So this is the function that's going to update all that on your screen. So after creating the private functions, I created another function called on click submit. So this is going to handle, so this is the function that's going to be called once you send the prompt to the model. And then this on value change prompt, it's going to check check the current value that you have on your, say, text field, and then update that value. And then update that value and then send it. It will update that value so that you can manage to send that prompt to the model. So this is how I basically handled states for the chat application. Next, after handling state, now it's how I was able to render all this on the UI using composables. So first of all, I'll go through the different components that I created. I think first of all, I should check if, yeah, and this. Okay, yeah, so this is a chart, a model chart item, like a component that I created so that you can be able to know which message comes from the model, from the charts, from the model, and which message comes from you as a user. So this is how it's going to display messages from the model. And this is how, let me see, it's going to show. Are there any questions so far? Because I've been talking a lot. You see, are there any questions? Okay, I haven't seen any. Okay, so this is how it's going to show messages that come from you as a user. Yeah, so I also used different colors so that you can be able to differentiate which message comes from which specific user. So let me see if I can be able to round up. Okay, one moment. Okay, so, okay. And then how I was able to like bring all that together so that you can have like a chat like kind of UI that you can be able to display all that on your UI. So first of all, I created a composable called chat screen. So this is going to show, this is a representation of how the screen will look like. And here I initialized the view model, which is the of type chat view model, and it will, and I used the collector state function so that it can be able to update the state of the UI in real time. And then this chat screen object also shows, is where I show the kind of the different operations that you're going to have. So first it's going to show the state of the UI, and then we're going to see how I showed you there was this parameter that I defined, a function that I defined here. Is it this on value change prompt? Yes. So this is going to check like whether if you've added any prompt on your text field, and then this other parameter is going to check whether it's going to listen to whether you've clicked on the button so that it can be able to send a prompt to the UI. Then here there's also created a composable called chat screen content, which is this. Now this is where now everything happens. It has three parameters which I've already defined here. So the state, which is going to be the state of the chat UI state, of type chat UI state, and then this on value change prompt, which is a lambda function, and also this on click submit, which is also a lambda function. And I created a column which has an animated content, composable. I use this animated content composable so that, let's say, if you want to run any animations on your, if you'd like to have any animations or define any animations that can be rendered on your screen, it will be easier to do that. So since I'd like to have this circular progress indicator rendered on my screen, I had to use this animated content because this circular progress indicator is usually an animation. So now inside this, I used a when statement, which is going to where we're going to check the states that we are going to encounter on our screen when you're interacting with the model. So when inside it, I passed in the messages. So the kind of states that you're going to have when you're interacting with the model, or when you like to get some messages from the model. So the first state we're going to encounter, okay, one of the states that we might encounter is an error state, and it's basically going to render a message from an error message from the model, or if there is no any error message configured for the model to return when, say, it encounters an error, it will render an error a text which basically says error on it. Next, we might encounter like an idle state, which is basically going to render a message or a text that says ask me anything. Next, we're going to encounter a loading state once you send a prompt to the UI, and then when you're waiting for the model to return a specific message based on your prompt, it's going to show a circular progress indicator. And then the last state, or one of the last, okay, the last state that you're going to encounter is a success state, where first of all, you need to check the current state of the charts. And then if the chart is empty, it's going to return or to render a message that says empty on your screen. Else, if you've encountered as else if the model has a response to return, it's going to return that prompt. And then here I've handled some of the cases that you're going to have. So the first one, it's you as a user when you send a prompt to the model. So it's going to return, it's going to show you that it's going to show you a chart, a user chart item, composable or component on your screen with the prompt that you've sent. And then if it's going to be a response from the model, so it's going to show you the model chart item on your screen, the component, one of the components that I showed you, and then it's go inside that component, it's going to show you the response that you've gotten, and it's going to map it to the model. So now I'm trying, let me see if I can be able to run this application. I'm trying to run this. Yeah. A moment. So far, do we have any questions? Okay, so okay, no questions. Okay, so once you do all that and run the application, it's going to bring you to this screen or interface where, like I mentioned earlier, once you launch the application, it's going to be in an idle state. So it's rendered this ask me anything text on your screen so that you can start interacting with the model. So let's say once I start interacting with the model by saying hello, Gemini, and click on the send button, it will show you the prompt that you've sent to the model, and then it's going to next be just below the message that you've sent. It's going to show you the response that you've gotten from the model. It says, "Hello, I'm not Gemini. I am Gemini, a multimodal AI language model developed by Google, but I'm happy to help." So you can add more prompts to it. Say, what is the capital of Kenya, just to see if it's going to return desired response, and it says Nairobi. So you can keep on interacting with it. And like I was telling you, since this is a chat app, it's going to show you like a message, a list of messages from you as a user, and a list of messages from you, from the model, once the model is able to get the prompt and return us a successful response. Okay, after that, okay, so how I used, there's two properties that I didn't talk about. One moment, chat view model here. So there was, yeah, okay, I think I already talked about this, but there's this is action enabled property, and this is prompt enabled property. So where I used those two properties, where I called them, is here, the is prompt enabled. It's just when you when you're defining the state of the, whether the when to enable the outlined text field. So it's going to check the state, and then check whether, and then call this is enabled, is prompt enabled based on this chat view model. So it's going to enable your outlined text field if the messages is not in the messages are not in a loading state, and then it's going to enable this icon button when the messages are not in. Yeah, it's going to enable the button when the prompt inside the when the prompt is not blank and the messages are not in UI state. So when the prompt is not blank is when you've started interacting or adding prompts to your outlined text field. So for example, you can see if I delete all this, this button here has been disabled. So once you start typing, it's going to be enabled. So that's how I've used these two properties in my composables, in the action icon button composable, and inside the outlined text field composable. And then after that, so this value parameter, which is used to check the state of the prompt. So if it has a prompt, it's going to check whether you have the prompt. Then when you have the prompt and click on the submit button, it's going to send that specific prompt to the model based on the functions that we defined in the chat view model here. So yeah, so when you click on the button, it's going to call this function, the on-click submit function, which is going to send the prompt to the model. I think that's all from my end. I don't know if there are any questions so far. Cynthia?
There's one question on the chat. What's your LinkedIn, and would you like to have a deep conversation about this?
Okay. My LinkedIn is Jacqueline Gitau, JACQUILINE. Gitau. So that's my LinkedIn name. That's how you're going to find me. Any other question? Or is there anything that you haven't understood and you'd like me to clarify further? Well, if there are no questions, I think I'll hand over this session back to you, Cynthia. And thank you so much for listening.
So we've come to the end of our session. I'd like to thank Jackie for the amazing session. I'm sure we've all learned a lot. And I'd also like to thank our audience for showing up and for listening throughout. So I have two announcements. The first one is that next weekend we're going to be having a session on responsible AI by Brian Kai. And then after that, we'll have another session by Marvin Gessa on Gemma. And then finally, we're going to be having a hackathon in May for 2 days. So, in case any one of you is interested, you can just be on the lookout. We're going to post all the information on the GDG Nairobi platform, which is in Debbie. So that brings us to the end. Thank you very much and see you next Thursday. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.